I'm Jasmine Moradi, and you're listening to the Queens of Tech podcast, a podcast series about raising the voice of workplace champions. 60 plus questions in around 30 to 40 minutes with women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender influencers about their journey into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I started the Queens of Tech podcast initiative in May 2022 because I would like to retain more women, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders in the tech industry. Talent is out there, but our work environment needs to improve for all to feel safer, stay authentic, and to be valued for our contributions. My vision is to raise the workplace ecosystem for all in tech by killing the imposter syndrome, stopping bad behavior, and increasing equity opportunities. Each podcast talk is built around 60 plus questions regarding upbringing, education, career path, DIB, and future advice. My mission is to bridge the gap between schools and workplaces by getting into the heart of my guest's personal life and career journey to inspire other girls, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders to unleash their full potential to reach top leadership roles in the tech industry. My goal is to raise the voices of tech champions around the world and together with companies, investors, and politicians, raise the challenges and opportunities around equity, inclusive, diversity, and belonging in our workplaces. Enough is enough. I would like to enforce companies to build a sustainable, inclusive culture to retain diverse talent so we keep the workforce power equity to continue building future diverse and inclusive products. Representation matters. Your voice matters. In this episode, I'm very excited to welcome my guest, Tech Queen Peighton Woodard, founder and CEO of Lunali. Hi, Peighton.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you? I'm very happy to have you joining us all the way from the US.
I am thrilled to be here. I'm just excited. I'm very honored to be on this podcast with you. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm honored to have you. And let us dive into your journey into STEM. Hope you're ready for the Quiz of Tech 60 plus questions.
Okay, I think so.
Let's warm up with a few fun facts about you. How would you describe your personality in 3 hashtags?
I would say thoughtful, outgoing, and energetic.
How would you summarize your life in 3 sentences?
That it has been a journey of discovering more about who I am and how the world works. And I really am just here to learn, and I'm excited to continue to learn. I'm a student of life.
What kind of music stimulates and motivates you the most?
Oh my gosh. It depends on the day, depends on where I'm at in my cycle. So sometimes it is old school, early 2000s hip hop that really will get me going. Other times it's like screamo that I listened to in high school. And then sometimes it's just like current music like Zach Bryan. So it's all over the board.
What is your personal motto?
I don't know what I don't know, but I'm willing to learn.
What is your favorite book?
I have lots of favorite books, but currently the one that I am actually re-listening to, if you will, is Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Love that book. It has been pivotal in just reiterating to me things that I already thought in ways that my brain already worked. And it was nice to hear it kind of written in a scientific way of like a confirmation. So I love that one.
What is your favorite podcast?
It changes also, but currently the Him and Her podcast, they've recently had a lot of guests on that are in total alignment with what I'm interested in, what I'm learning, all of that. So it just really has resonated.
Mac or PC?
Mac.
There's something interesting about you that most people don't know.
I would say that it was actually my psychedelic journeys early on in my 20s that really kind of opened the aperture for me for life in general and my spiritual relationship.
What is your hidden talent?
I have a very strong connection with my intuition. So I tend to kind of see, know, hear, feel things that other people just don't.
And if you were going to write a book about your life, what would the title be, Peyton?
Created and curated my journey from failure to success with using mindset over matter.
Beautiful. Great start. Now, let us dig deeper. Our childhood has a profound effect on our adulthood. Our early experiences shape our belief about ourselves, others, and the world. So, I want to discover your childhood. Where did you grow up and how did it shape your early experiences?
I grew up in a really great city called St. Pete, just outside of Tampa, Florida. It's a very art centric town, which was really inspiring. I'm very creative. I have always been my entire life. And so to see that you could be creative and actually create something with that was really inspiring, to not feel like I needed to go corporate, but I could go a completely different direction and be successful that way.
So, based on that creativity, what was your dream job when you were a child?
I wanted to be a runway hairstylist and own my own salon.
What was your favorite subject in school?
None. I have never been into school. So if I had to pick one, I would say computer, ironically, but really computer back then, in the early 2000s, it was learning how to type fast. And that was kind of the extent of it. You weren't learning coding or anything, but I was not a good student. I didn't want to be there because I was told I had to be there. I wanted to rebel.
So, if you didn't have a favorite, then all of them were your least favorite subjects?
No, if I really had to pick one, it was algebra. And I've never used algebra since I had to attempt to learn it in 10th grade. So algebra would definitely be the least favorite.
So, what was your earliest memory of technology and the arrival of the internet?
I used to code my own websites when I was in middle school. I don't really remember the extent of it, but I do know that I was in the back end, like literally putting code in to make the background sparkly or to add music in or to make these little dolls appear. So that was kind of my earliest memory of it. My dad has always kind of built computers or refurbished computers. Then in middle school and in high school, I was really well versed with a PC. And then I went to the Mac, and now I couldn't even probably turn a PC on at this point.
And then, which were the three first technology gadgets you owned yourself, and how did they influence your interest in tech going forward?
I had a Nextel walkie-talkie cell phone, which I definitely loved. And ironically, I use a walkie-talkie app almost every day with one of my really good founder friends called Voxer. So I still actually use that. And then I had my own computer, which again, I was able to learn how to code and I was doing this and that. And then past that, I think it was probably then moving on to the iPhone. It wasn't the next one I had, but it definitely was another one that influenced the way that I work in technology, obviously with apps, and because I've created an app. So the kind of the full circle of it.
And during that period of time, who was your female role model growing up, and what about her inspired you?
So don't laugh at this one, and I don't even know if you're familiar with the show, but there was a show when I was in high school called Laguna Beach. And one of the girls on there was Lauren Conrad. She was just, I think, one, because she was going into the fashion industry too. Definitely resonated because I wanted to do hair for runway, but also that she was literally just going for it. Like she wasn't necessarily taking no as an answer, and she just was going for it and pursuing her dreams was very inspiring to me.
So then, how do you think, based on what you said, where you grew up and the school you went to and the generation you come from influence your education and career choice?
Literally my entire life has gotten me to this point. I think everything we experience and the perspectives we hold create the reality we experience. And so all of it formed who I became to then create Luna Leaf, which I'm creating. So I think it was all a part of the big master plan for my life. And it has influenced me in really wonderful ways to keep going, keep pursuing it. I grew up in a place where there was diversity and there was seeing really successful people and really unsuccessful people. And so it kind of taught me resiliency. And then I married someone in the military, and that really teaches you resiliency. So I think it all kind of culminated into creating who I am.
It's very beautiful that you were able to see that matching in that pattern. So let us jump into your career. But before that, I'm going to read two quotes. First one, how does the universe expect me to choose a career path at 16? I can't even choose what I want for dinner. Second, Abraham Lincoln said, I quote, the best way to predict your future is to create it. So, Peyton, I want to know the choices behind your career path. Where and what did you end up studying at university?
I did not go to university. So I went to the local college for the first semester after I graduated high school. And then I sat my parents down and I was like, I don't want to do this. I had to take speech, Western humanities, composition, all of these classes that I was like, I was thinking I wanted to get a degree in business so that one day I could own my own salon. But I was like, but why do I have to take Western humanities? That has nothing to do with me owning a business down the line. Like, this is a waste of time. So I was like, I just want to go to hair school. So they said yes. They sent me to hair school. I became a hairstylist and I've never looked back. I have no idea if I even got credits for that first semester because I just didn't care anymore. I was like, this is pointless. I'm not going to use this. So I did not go to college and I have only done some trade schools and just, the school of life.
Who and what influenced you to get into your choice of life field in terms of hairdresser?
No one in particular. I guess if I were to pinpoint somebody, my brother, I have two older brothers, and my middle brother and I were very close growing up. He was in a punk rock band. His idol was this guy, Sid Vicious, that was a singer of another band, and he really liked his hair and asked me to figure out how to do it. So I figured out how to do his hair. So I would bleach one side, make the other side black. I would cut it with those big orange kitchen scissors. I'd spike it out for him for his shows. And so then I started cutting his hair. I started cutting his friend's hair, started cutting my own hair. So all throughout high school, I was the only one that cut or colored my own hair. And I mean, looking back at pictures, it wasn't bad. I still, to this day, am the only one that cuts and colors my hair. And I'm 36 now. So I'd say my brother probably unintentionally influenced it more than he realized.
But then what influenced you to getting to the tech industry?
That's a good question. There wasn't necessarily a particular influence in the sense of someone from tech influencing me. What really influenced me is I am also a Reiki practitioner. And for the past couple of years, I've been doing Reiki, especially with women. And what I was coming across all the time was that so many women were disconnected from their cycle and they were disconnected from the highs and lows that the entire month would present to them because of their hormones. And so then they were blaming themselves. Well, I'm crazy. Well, I'm this. I'm just a bitch. It's not that. It is that our hormones are shifting. And when we're not able to recognize that shift, it feels like it's an us problem. And it feels like I'm just the crazy one. I'm just the bitch, this and that. And so through that recognition of working with these women, I started to help them recognize the patterns in their cycles, which started to help them long after the Reiki session was over. And so then the idea for Luna Leaf came to me in a meditation one day. So I really think there's like a greater plan at play here versus just one person inspiring me. So it's been little nuggets of inspiration along the way that got me to where I am in tech.
That is beautiful. And that is an inspiration of you listening to the universe.
Oh, yeah.
So what does Luna Leaf do?
So Luna Leaf is a cycle syncing and cycle tracking app for women. We support the user where they're at in their cycle by providing workouts, meditations, pep talks, and recipes. And they're all very specifically chosen for that day that that user is in their cycle. So, your workout on day 2 of your menstrual phase is going to be very different than your ovulatory day 1 workout. So we're helping you learn to listen to the body and hear your own body's cues and honor them. So we're not going for a 10-mile run when you're on day 2 of your bleed because that's not what's supportive for your body. So we're trying to help women rewrite the narrative around how they work out, how they sleep, how they're productive throughout the entire month so that they feel best. They feel like they've optimized their life.
Absolutely love it. So what is your title and what is your main responsibilities?
So I am the founder and CEO, and my responsibility is everything. I am a team of one at this moment. Other than development, I do have a development team because I am a non-technical tech founder. So I have an incredible team supporting me doing the actual coding. I can't try to even resurrect what I knew in middle school, but I do everything from the emails to the social media posts. It is me, myself, and I at this moment.
So what does a typical workday or work week look like for you?
Now that my kids are back in school, I can breathe a little bit more. My typical workday starts at 5 a.m. I either get up and have my coffee and just some quiet time, or I do the sauna. And then I get the kids up, get them fed, make their lunches, take them to school. When I get home, I bring the dog for a walk and I engage in something I call my Dreamy Girl walks. So I just speak into existence what it is that I'm creating in my life, in my universe, in my reality, and just claim it. And I do these walks every morning as long as it's not raining. And then I'll come home, I get ready for the day, I'll hop on, do some computer work or meetings, and then I will shift over and start doing content creation. So when you're using the app and you're getting these meditations and workouts and pep talks, a lot of times it's me, sometimes my wellness creators. And so that's other women that are in my community that have a passion for also supporting women and where they're at in their cycle. So it's either me or someone else recording content. And then I'm also trying to be consistent on social media and all of that. I eat somewhere in between all of that. And then I pick my kids up from school, and then it's after school activities. And then the rest of the day I spend with them.
Wow, that is full grace and full
Oh, yeah.
energy. Probably because you know how your hormones and your world work means you can maximize your energy.
Yes. I know where I need and where I can really push it with my energy. And so I really push hard in those time frames so that when I'm in that lower energy space in my luteal phase, that I can allow myself to breathe a little bit more and rest.
Very inspiring. So, all the listeners, go ahead and download it. I also love the quote, choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life, because it doesn't sound like you're working at all because you absolutely love what you do. So, what do you love the most about your role?
Oh, I think honestly, what I love the most, not particularly about my role, but just about overall what I'm creating, since I do have so many roles. I think what I really love the most is the fact that I am getting to create something that can truly help women's lives. And I think that, I've had a few male people that I've interacted with that they're just like, well, why don't you just write a book, teach them how to cycle sync and then be done with it? And I'm like, it's not that simple. Women's mental loads are already so overloaded, especially once you're a mom and when you're a spouse and then you're working. And it's just a lot. So then trying to understand all of the nuances of cycle syncing, there are a lot of them. And so what makes me most excited is to hear women feel a difference from their bodies, from their day-to-day experience, from their overall monthly experience once they use the app. I think that is really what makes me really excited and happy.
So, what has been the best experience you've had so far? Any examples?
Feedback from women, even when I was just doing the Reiki and helping them kind of understand where they're at in their cycle. I was getting messages of these women just with such gratitude because they're like, I now know that I should not have those tough conversations with my employees at this part of my cycle. And I've been saving it for my ovulatory phase. And it's made such a difference. I have a clear head when I have these conversations. It's not getting emotional. One in particular, she's like, it's really changed actually how I run my business in such a beneficial way that she would have never realized had we not worked together, and pinpointed the fact that she needed to work with her cycle instead of against it.
Wow, that shows how powerful our hormones
Oh,
is
yes,
and
they
how
are.
and what is the biggest challenge you've encountered so far and how did you end up tackling it?
Rewind a little bit. I said that I never went to university. I don't have a degree. And I found myself in rooms with people also in tech that have letters after their names and lots of them. And I realized I was like the only one ever in the room that didn't have some sort of college degree, didn't have a co-founder or this team behind them. And so imposter syndrome tried to like stand on top of me many times. And I was just like, I can't do this. That was probably the toughest. So it was myself. I was getting in my own way and allowing the doubts and the fears to kind of override what was actually here. Because when I actually looked at it, it was like, wait, hang on. I'm the only one in this room without a college degree. And I'm in this room. I didn't push my way in. I was invited into this fold. So that has to say something. So that was probably the hardest part, navigating through my own limiting beliefs around that,
And what do you wish everybody understood about your role?
that I literally do everything. So I write the emails, I respond to the emails, I do the social media content, I do the filming, even if it's not me doing the workout, I do everything. My goal is to not do everything. It's just that it has led to right now at this point that I do it all. And I know very soon that'll be different. I will be in a hiring stage and a growth stage. So I look forward to that also.
And what is the one common myth about your professional field that you want to disapprove?
that the cycle is just 1 week out of the month for a woman, and it's not. It is an entire month, and sometimes for some women, it's longer than a month. It can be up to 45 days long, and it is cyclical, and we can't help it. Just because we want to feel better, there's still times where our hormones just really don't support the mindset we want to have. And so I really hope to help women change and help their spouses understand that it is so much more than just 1 week out of the month that you bleed. And it is an entire cycle that we can get to know and learn and use and utilize.
So, what do you love about working in the tech industry?
That I get to have such a far reach. So when I was doing Reiki, I really could only reach as far as, people who knew of me or personally knew me could find me. Very few times was it some random person just completely, finding me some weird way. But now that the app gets to be in the app store, it is globally available. And so the fact that it can have such a reach and impact so many women worldwide is just so mind-blowing. The fact that tech has come so far, that I can create this thing here in North Carolina, in the US, and yet someone in Europe can utilize it and change their life with it. It literally gives me goosebumps.
It's really beautiful. And Oprah Winfrey said, I quote, think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is not a stepping stone to greatness. So Peyton, what would you say by far has been your biggest achievement in your career?
I was accepted into the Founder Institute, which is the world's largest pre-seed accelerator. 148 companies applied. I was one of 48 that got accepted, only one of 5 women. And I was one of 4 women to actually successfully complete and graduate from Founder Institute. So, I've been at this for just about a year. So far, that's my biggest accomplishment. But talk to me in like 6 months. There will be so many more accomplishments.
That is amazing. Congratulations. Such an inspiration. And also for a lot of people that are listening, wanting to get into tech industry, that you actually can reach where you've reached. So what would you say is the biggest factor that's helped you become successful? What are your success habits?
I feel the fear and do it anyway. So there are so many times where, like I said, imposter syndrome wants to creep in. It wants to hang out for the day. I acknowledge it. I don't try to wish it away, but then I decide how I can still move past it. Whether it is an inch forward or it's 3 steps forward, I just make sure that I am continuing to step forward every day, make a move. Even if for one day, it is literally just hitting post on a social media post. That could be it for one day. Other times it's going to be a podcast and it's going to be recording 10 pieces of content. It's going to be sending out all these emails. And so it's going to look different every day. I just make sure that I don't stop. I just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
So how do you measure your own performance at work, knowing that you're successful?
I think that will shift very soon because I'm still in launch mode. So there's definitely different KPIs that I plan on really targeting and hitting once it's actually available, which is like in less than 2 weeks. So by the time you're listening to this podcast, the app is available. But for now, I'm still leading up to launch. So right now, I just keep myself accountable by committing. So if I say that I'm going to write that email that day or I'm going to record that many pieces of content, I do it. And so there are times, especially over summer, I have 2 kids. They were home all summer. My husband was still at work. There were times where I couldn't hit those goals because of outside factors like, just a cranky kid. And I gave myself the grace when that happened and continued, okay, the next day I'm going to pick it back up.
And you did mention about your imposter syndrome being a challenge, but with success comes failures. So what is your biggest failure in your career and what did you learn from it?
I don't necessarily feel I've had a failure, knock on wood. Again, I've only been at this about a year. So I think that there is still plenty of room for failure. If I were to try to really pinpoint one, I did hire 2 interns for the summer. And I failed at leadership with them because, again, didn't go to college. I've never done an internship. I didn't really know what or how to set the expectations and then how to help them follow through on them. So I would say I failed at maybe having interns because I really didn't know what I was doing. I also have this thing where, I feel bad asking someone else to do something, so I'll just do it myself. So I really wasn't good at delegating those tasks to them. That would probably be if I have to add in a failure. That would be it.
I can hear your energy. I can feel your joy, your passion. So, what is inspiring and motivate you the most in your role and career right now?
I think I would go back to what I said before is just knowing that what I'm creating can change the lives of women and it can change their relationship with their body. And I think women, especially growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, we were shown bodies that were very, very thin and really unrealistic. And I think that a lot of women still carry that. And through maybe not being able to achieve what they thought their body was supposed to look like, have really resulted in disconnecting from their body altogether. And I think our cycle has a lot of power that we can lean into and connect with and reconnect with our body. So, helping women have that reconnection to themselves.
I love that. And thank you very much for doing that. It's so
It
needed.
is needed. Absolutely.
Let us now jump into the influence of mentor, role models, champions, and sponsors. Role models can consciously or subconsciously be a powerful force in our lives. In addition, champions can stand up and advocate for us and open up the world of possibilities. Sponsors match emerging talent with leaders and influential employees who can help us move ahead in our careers. Peyton, do you have a mentor, champion, or a sponsor today?
I do. I was lucky enough, again, the universe kind of just supported me, opened doors that I didn't even know existed. And I was introduced to a woman named Allie Craig. She's an award winning copyright and brand business owner. And she started a nonprofit for military spouses. And through that nonprofit, she actually helps me do exactly what she does in her for profit business, which is branding, copy, all of that. And she's really been such a wealth of knowledge to have on my side through this experience and through the development and even just the psychographics of understanding my audience exactly. Truly, I would not be where I'm at in my business if it weren't for her. So, yes, I do have one and I love her to death.
Beautiful. And thank you for acknowledging her work and her support. Because history shows that it has been more common for men having mentor champions as sponsor in business than women. So, based on what you say, how important do you think is to have a mentor champion as sponsors through one's career?
I really think it's vital. I didn't realize how vital it was until I had her and realized how much further and faster I was able to get places with the help of her. And really just even having someone to be like, well, this is what I was thinking. What do you think about it? And then really from her own experience, being able to be like, well, this is what has worked in the past. Maybe we could do it this way. Just because I am a solo founder, having that person to bounce ideas off of has been invaluable in itself.
That is beautiful. So, let's now move on to leadership. You were talking about leading interns.
Yep.
But before that, Adena Friedman, President and CEO of Nasdaq, said, I quote, empowering those around you to be heard and valued makes a difference between a leader who simply instructs and one who inspires. And Shirley Sandberg, ex-COO of Facebook, said, I quote, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that the impact lasts in your absence. So, what does leadership mean to you?
Well, I really love the first quote you shared. I hadn't heard that before, but leadership to me is about inspiring. And so it is inspiring others to want to do the work to move in the same direction as you. And I know if you ask my husband, his answer would be completely different because he's military. But I really think that I am led best by being inspired versus being told. Just like, I had to go to high school. I didn't want to go to high school. I was told to go. So that's why I didn't want to be there. But if I can be inspired to help someone else in creating the vision that I am also passionate about, then of course I'm in. Like, sign me up tomorrow. So I plan to lead with inspiration, especially when I'm building my team and making sure that that's how someone else wants to be led, that they are led with inspiration versus, I don't want to ever feel like I'm in a dictatorship. You have to do this and this and this and this. Like, even with my kids, I'm trying to inspire them to grow as the little humans they are into the next development. So inspiration is huge.
And that is beautiful that you're finding your leadership skills and the way you want to lead, because leadership is more than just one way of doing it. So, if you would distinguish a good leader, though, versus a bad leader, what would that be?
I would say that a good leader is helping the others grow. There's not this hierarchy of I'm better than you and you're less than me. but it's that you're inspiring them and encouraging them for their own self-development and growth. A bad leader to me would just be someone that is ignoring anybody's humanness in the workforce. They're not robots. No one's a robot to do all of this for you and not have a human experience also. So I think recognizing that there is still this human component to all of the people that work for you and with you, and collectively, like it's a collective growth that we all need to experience for the betterment of the world. So bad leadership is anyone not recognizing.
So, who is your favorite female, non-binary, or transgender tech leader, and why?
I would have to honestly not be able to pick one. I would have to say the women that I have met along this journey that are all doing their own thing in tech. I had the privilege of going to a tech accelerator in Connecticut, and it was all for FemTech. And it was all women except for one man. And he's doing great work too, inspired by his wife's journey. But meeting those women and seeing the innovation that they're bringing into the world to literally just make life better for women and for couples, that is so inspiring. So I don't have just one. I have all the women that are putting their necks on the line, are growing personally to create what it is that, they're putting into the world for everyone else to benefit from.
So now, how would you describe yourself as a leader?
I have room for improvement based off of what I said about the interns. I would say that I plan to be a very understanding leader. I know that that can also sometimes shoot me in the foot or bite me in the ass if I'm taken advantage of, but that's where I kind of lean back into my intuition and follow my gut. So I plan to be a leader that inspires and one that really is understanding of the human experience and really supportive of where people want to take their journey, whether it's working with me and my company for just 2 years before they decide to go out and start their own. If they go out and decide to start their own, then I know that I have inspired. I've done leadership right. I don't want someone that just wants to stick with me for 20 plus years and not really have any sort of personal growth along the way. Not asking for high turnover, but I want people to grow through their experience of working with me.
And as a leader, what values do you then prioritize the most?
Self-care. I mean, I really, even just in my friendships, in my house, like how I run things, I just want people to prioritize their health. I mean, after all, that is what we're trying to do with Luna Leaf in general, is that women then prioritize their health. So I really hope that I can instill that value in everyone that works with Luna Leaf, that they do hold that as a very high value, that their own self-development, their self-love, everything for themselves and their growth is at a priority.
And what leadership lessons have you learned that have shaped you into the leader you are today and want to be tomorrow?
That is a good one. I think I'm learning how I don't want to do it with really not having a clear understanding of the expectations and the boundaries and the roles for everybody. So I think clarity is probably the biggest thing I need to work on, especially when I'm hiring specific roles, so that it is very clear. Communication is there of like, this is the expectation, this is the boundary, this is what works, this is what doesn't, so that everyone can be on the same page. And then having those weekly touch-ins of like, are we still on the same page? We're good. Do you have questions about it? Just really having a big open line of communication.
Based on that, what are your 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses?
I think I am inspiring. I can multitask like a mofo because I have ADHD, so I can switch hats very easily. But I would say that also trickles over into a weakness too, because I can get distracted and off topic. Another strength would be that I think I'm a visionary. I see so many different areas that we could expand and branch off into to continue to benefit women. Weaknesses would be, again, ADHD comes back in. It can be dual. That definitely isn't great. Still developing my leadership, so I'm weak in the leadership role. And I'm not the best, or I am self-critical of my marketing. So that would probably be another area that I personally feel weak, but someone else may think otherwise. I'm just self-critical of it.
Let us now jump into the hottest topic in business today, workplace culture, unlocking the power of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Peighton, what do diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean to you personally?
You can't have a well-oiled machine and a well-run company without it. Because here's the thing, literally, we're all one, in my opinion. It is all the human experience, and we're just in different versions of that. And so there's no reason for it to not be inclusive. There's no reason for it to not be diverse in your company. And so I think it's the future of companies and the future of well-run businesses are inclusive. They are diverse. They are equal. It's how it's supposed to be from the beginning.
Then what do you consider being 3 to 5 signs of good company culture if you were ever to join a company tomorrow?
Yeah, if I was to join a company tomorrow, I would definitely need to feel like the company values their employees' health at the forefront so that there is a good work environment. There's stuff in place to help their employees benefit their life and, again, grow. Like, I'm all about personal development, personal growth. I think it's what we're here for, and that we can do it collectively and work with really great companies also needs to be offered across the board for any different type of person, whether it's religious differences, whether it's body differences, it doesn't really matter. We're all are human.
Yes, we are. But still, as a woman, Peyton, what has been the most significant political or cultural barrier in your career, and how have you overcome these challenges?
Thankfully, haven't really felt big cultural or barriers like that. But I will say I was told by a mentor not to say the word menstruate so much because it makes men uncomfortable. And I had no words. I was speechless after that. I acknowledged what he said. And then I also just wanted to go menstruate, menstruate, menstruate because it was ridiculous. I mean, really, it is the medical term. I wasn't speaking about it in a graphic way. But what my app does is it tracks the menstrual cycle of women. So how can I not say that word? And so that was definitely a bit of a shock to the system that in 2024, that's where we're at with men around menstrual cycles, which, by the way, they wouldn't even exist if we didn't have menstrual cycles. So, like, it's kind of a necessary thing. So I think that was probably the most shocking experience I had, and was just really dumbfounded of how did you allow that to slip out of your mouth as if that was good advice?
And why do you think it's important for more women, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders to join the tech industry today?
I think in general, women have a different perspective of life and business. And I think for so long, all of the industries have been dominated by men, and it's only gotten us to where we're at. I think if we were really able to bring more women and kind of their perspective, their experiences, their femininity into company culture, we would have a much different looking company landscape in a really beneficial way. Even just when you think about who the consumer is, consumers, women versus men, it's different. And it benefits the world in a better way when it's female consumers over male consumers. And there's obviously a place for men in these companies and in tech. It's just, it's time for it to not be so off balance. It's time for women to feel like they also belong in the same place a man does, because he is doing no different than me in a tech company than I am doing. So it's different when we're going to talk about, lifting 50-pound concrete bags. Yes, that's going to wear on a man's body different than a woman's body. But when we're talking about sitting behind a computer and we're talking about creating a tech company, there's no difference between a man and a woman. And, honestly, there's majority of the menstrual tracking apps have actually been created by men. You're like, well, why? Is it just because they were chasing the dollar? I mean, the biggest one is Flow, and it was created by a man, and it has 250 to 300 million monthly users. And he's never had an actual lived experience of a menstrual cycle, ever. Not to say he doesn't have daughters or a wife, but he personally has never had that experience.
Well, I agree with you. It's all about talking and discussing and educating and make people use and understanding it. So how do you discuss DIB challenges such as salary gaps, promotion, maternity leave with your colleagues, peers, or community?
So I don't really, obviously, with colleagues, I don't have any, but with peers, I think especially being surrounded by so many women because I'm in tech as a woman, I am finding myself surrounded by women in tech. And we're all on the same page of like, it's just ridiculous. There's no reason it should be any different. There's no reason that we should both do the same jobs and get paid differently just because of the gender. I also think that men should also get paternity leave. Thankfully, the military enacted that late. My husband didn't get it. He got 2 weeks off both times they had my kids. but now they actually get 12 weeks off, which they should. They are a part of the experience of newborns. So I think there is equality that needs to be spread out on both sides. They need to get some time off for when their wives have babies. Maternity leaves needs to be a priority. And unfortunately, my sister-in-law had to go back to work like 6 weeks after having her baby because she was a doctor and she had to go back and deliver more babies again. And she had a male boss. And so he didn't have the same perspective of understanding for her needing time and space to recover. So yeah, I think it's just a conversation everyone needs to be willing to have and just open your eyes. Like, there's no reason it should be different. There's literally no reason based on anything. If you are a human, you have the same skills, then you get the same pay.
I agree with you. There is no reason for it to be different. However, as we know, there are many public and internal discussion about the barriers women of color, non-binary, transgender individuals face from reaching high position or receiving funding in the tech industry. So how have these issues affected you, and what is your advice on overcoming these roadblocks?
It's been interesting. I've also gone into this space in a climate that has really shifted in funding in general. So I know there are men now experiencing shifts in being able to receive funding also. So the funding climate in general has shifted, and I entered it right when it was shifting. So I don't know what it would have looked like for me as a woman trying to raise 5 years ago compared to today. What I do know is that I have been told over and over and over again that I needed to prove traction to get anyone to have a conversation with me about it. So, doing as I do, rebelling, I said, fine, I'm going to do it on my own. I kind of just ignored the whole fundraising aspect. I figured out how I could do it on my own. I've bootstrapped until now. And I've thought, maybe in the future, I'll revisit it. Maybe in the future, I'll try to go back and if I need to raise in the future. But for now, I'm bootstrapping it. I'm kind of just pulled myself out of that conversation because I was hearing the same thing over and over again, which was it's hard for women to raise. You have to prove traction, this, that, and the other. So it's like, well, I can only prove traction once I'm really launched. That's the only way I'm going to get substantial traction, which is very close. I'm 2 weeks out. So we will see. Maybe the conversation or my opinion would be different once I have traction, but then that feels kind of crappy too, because then you hear about men that are like, hey, I had this idea and I'm looking for investors. And then they get investors and it's just an idea. They've done nothing. They've done no market research. They've done nothing else. It's an idea and they get funding. And I'm like, well, I had an idea, but I didn't even get conversations, let alone funding. So it's definitely different for women.
So why do you think it's like that?
I really think that there is still just a misconception that there's an ingrained deep belief that maybe is on a subconscious level for a lot of men, but just that men are capable and women are not, that men are the ones that are supposed to be out there earning money, being successful, and women are the ones that are supposed to be at home, making dinner, taking care of the kids. And I think some men, and I do think it is on a subconscious level, a societal subconscious level, so many people just fall into that. Oh no, my husband, he takes care of the bills. My husband does this. My husband goes out. He's the breadwinner. Again, it's a societal shift that needs to happen, just like with the discriminatory and the salary gaps and all of that. A complete societal shift that has to happen, kind of an awakening and a consciousness shift.
I agree with you. You also did earlier mention that DIB is the future, that all companies should have it, should have been there from the beginning. However, today tech companies invest heavily in marketing to attract women of color, non-binary, and transgender individuals, but struggling to retain them. Articles show that women are leaving the tech industry. So what is your best advice or strategies for how companies can work to build a stronger corporate culture that engages DIB?
I think for a company that is really working with the DEIB is that they need to have culture almost above anything. It's above, maybe, I know this is going to be fringe to say, but above revenue, because if you don't have those people there to help sustain your company, you're not going to have revenue. And so to really help is to invest in the culture. Invest in making sure that everyone feels comfortable and that there are things in place and repercussions in place for when there are bad apples in the bunch and to get rid of them easily and quickly. so that there aren't more victims of discriminatory practices or salary gaps, all of that, because there shouldn't be. And so I think if you're going to pursue that as a company, it has to be the number one value to keep the company culture a good culture and keep the bad apples out or get rid of them as soon as they pop up.
But however, it's not like that. So what would you say are the key challenges of implementing a DIB culture in a workplace and in tech industry today?
Mm-mm. I really think maybe having kind of KPIs, if you will, for company culture to make sure everyone feels like they're getting touched, they're getting heard, they're getting supported monthly or biweekly, whatever it is, these kind of like constant. When I was in real estate, you always wanted to have these touches. You wanted to always kind of keep at the forefront of someone's mind that you're a realtor and that you know them and this personal kind of conversation. And of course, I know that that's challenging with big corporations. That's challenging with big companies. But if you don't start at all just because you're like, well, I'm too big to do that, or we have too many employees, we can't implement anything, then you're never going to change the culture in your company. So it starts small. Maybe it does start with, every 6 months there's this touch in and everyone gets to kind of have this conversation and air their grievances or say, this kind of felt wrong, or I'm really questioning this. This person kind of seems to maybe have some issues with me because I'm of color. It has to be an open line of communication. And so I think that that's really where it begins.
And how do you think companies would benefit from not just having women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders, but actual higher gender representation at C-suite level and boardrooms with a voice?
I think it would make a big difference in the culture overall because they're coming in with a completely different perspective and experience. And the biggest thing would be to make sure they're not coming in with aggression towards others that don't deserve it either. It's really, making sure that we're talking with these people to make sure they want to go into these positions for the right reasons and not just to kind of get back at somebody or anything like that, but they want to actually support the company and support the culture in a very positive, forward-thinking way to continue to cultivate the culture that is wanted and desired so everybody feels comfortable and accepted in that company.
And you are giving amazing advice to the listeners and the companies around there. However, what do you think is the main reason that we still see few women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders in tech leadership roles and as startup founders still today?
I think it's still new for women to feel like they belong in it. I think it's new for people that aren't typical men to feel like they belong in this space. I know I'm still trying to get my footing in understanding like, okay, I am a non-technical founder as a tech company, and that is okay. And I'm going to learn and I'm going to hire the people that know more than me to make my company successful. And so I think there's personal intimidation, maybe, for some people that are just like, well, I can't do that. That's for someone else to do. But hopefully that is changing. Hopefully people get out of their own way and decide to just freaking go for it because I can. I promise you that you can, considering I have zero background in business or tech like this. So, I think it's really just pushing past the fear and doing it anyways.
And that is why you are such an inspirational role model and somebody that people should look up to as a representation. And we were talking about it earlier about the funding. And just to say it so the listeners know that the data reveals a concerning trend of low funding rates for startups led by women, with only 1 to 2% of the funding directed towards women in the tech industry. Black and Latina women in particular receive less than 1%. So what factors do you believe, Peighton, contribute to this imbalance, and what strategies can be achieved to increase funding for women-led startups? I did like your idea, and I've heard it before, that why go and try to milk the money that is not giving to us and instead try to start companies that can generate revenue from the start?
Yeah. I mean, really, I think it goes back to just old school thinking that we have as a society and that men tend to have. And unfortunately, at this point, the investment and the investor landscape is that it is mostly men. So generally speaking, they're not giving the women the opportunity or they're not looking for female founded companies to invest in. The wildest part of it is that female founded companies are actually more successful than male founded companies. But They're not looking at that. And I don't know why. It'd be great to have a conversation with some male investors to really kind of try to understand why they think the landscape is the way it is. Of course, we can speculate all we want. I'm not an investor though, so I don't know from that perspective. But I do know in general that fundraising landscape has really shifted, especially recently. People have really closed their wallets down a bit. And I think it's just going to take a few heavy hitter tech companies that are female founded, bootstrapped, or female invested, and they're just going to skyrocket and maybe really make a name for female founded companies on the overall tech landscape to where men are maybe a little bit more open to having the conversations with female founders to invest in them. I will say though, when I was looking at investing, I'm creating an app for women. I always wanted to be able to say that I was female founded and female funded. So I didn't want to have the conversations with men, but it's even harder to find female investors and try to get those conversations. So anyone's listening, female investors, just, you can call me. I'm happy to have a conversation. But yeah, I wanted to be able to just fully support women in a full circle way with what I'm creating because it's for women.
Amazing. I love it. And you've been in the tech industry only for a year.
Yep.
But being in this for a year, you've still heard a lot. You've seen a lot, though. I can hear that. So how much do you think the tech industry has changed regarding DIB since you joined?
I wish that I had more of a perspective. I will say for the first 6 months, I was in my own world. I didn't really break into the world of learning and meeting and talking with other tech founders to have a true grasp on how it has shifted. If we have this conversation in a year or two, I probably have a lot of opinions about how it shifted. But as for now, I don't have enough perspective to give a real solid answer.
So looking forward then, because you will have a long career in tech now, what actions will you take as a leader to reduce bias and improve the IB for the next generation of tech leaders?
Here's the thing. If you are going to be an employee or you're going to be a part of my team, I want to feel like I can have a conversation with you that you are a friend. And so I know that in my hiring process, that will be a part of it. I need to feel like we can just have a conversation and I get to know who the core of you is. And at that core, if I feel like there's going to be down the line issues with discrimination or anything like that, then it's just not going to be the person I'm going to hire for the team. So I feel like I am really going to be intentional about my hires and so that I am creating that culture off the bat to support the DEI.
I look forward to meeting your team and you growing this company.
You
And
too.
I want to join. Sounds amazing. Let us now move on to another hot topic in business today, which is work-life balance and mental health. Peighton, you did describe your life to me. You are undoubtedly have a busy lifestyle. You did explain a little bit before, but more in detail. How do you take care of yourself to maintain good mental health?
I prioritize my walks. My morning is for me. And once I get the kids to school, that is when I then can shift into work mode. So I do check my emails in the morning sometimes. I don't necessarily usually respond to them then, but I am very diligent in my do not disturb time with my phone. So at 7:30, my phone automatically goes on to do not disturb. My alarm is already set for the next day. And generally speaking, after that, you can't get in touch with me. And my kids go to bed around 7:30. And I just like to be very routine, which helps my ADHD. It helps my mental capacity, if you will. And so I just prioritize routine because that is how I function best. I know other people are like, routine feels rigid. I don't want to deal with it. For me, that is how I function because I know what to expect. So mentally, it also helps me to have the clarity of kind of planning out my days and prioritizing myself.
Have you ever experienced burnout?
I have not, knock on wood. Again, I prioritize my rest. I'm not burning the midnight oil. So, it can wait until tomorrow. And if it can't, then that's a once in a very, very rarely often occasion that I am ever up past my husband. Legitimately get in bed around 8:30 every night. And so there's a very rare occasion that I am on my computer past that. Otherwise, my computer gets shut around 4 in the afternoon and doesn't open again until the next day.
So based on your own experience, what is your advice on how companies can create a more mentally healthy workplace in Inu now?
I think recognizing that people are humans and that they're having human experiences, and there's going to be times where accidents are made or deadlines are missed or they need to just take a break because they're at mental capacity, and that is okay. It's when becomes like a pattern that maybe another intervention needs to be had. But I think prioritizing everyone's wellness is the top priority for companies to have, again, company culture that people want to be there. People are inspired to be there. People are inspired to be led. It all comes down to them also taking care of themselves outside of work.
And what would you say, Peyton, motivates you every day to get out of bed? 5 a.m.
I'd say my kids and myself. Like, I have my dreamy girl walks. I have a future that I am working to create. And unfortunately, my kids had a very sad little summer where we didn't get to do much because mom's bootstrapping a company and I had to work like every day, and it annoyed them and they didn't like it and they complained. And of course, I felt bad. But at the same time, I'm like, I promise this summer is the only summer that's going to be like this. Next summer is going to be completely different. I'm manifesting that. And so I get up for my kids. I get up for me. I get up for the life that I am actively creating.
Beautiful. Now, let us wrap up with a few words of wisdom and a piece of advice for our listeners. Peyton, what is the best piece of advice you've been given that has helped you during setbacks in your role and career?
Don't be afraid to be authentic and just say that you don't know. And, there's times where it's like we want to present really well and like we know everything and that we're this really intelligent tech founder and that no, of course we know what our back end is created with and this and that. And the thing is when you're lying about it, you're not coming off authentic and people can feel that. People can sense it. So just be authentic and be like, no, I don't know what that is. Can you explain it to me? People want to teach. People want to help. People want to connect you with others. And so just being willing to be a student and that let people know you're in learning mode. You should always be in learning mode. So I think authenticity kind of is definitely being authentic was the best piece of advice I got.
And then what is the worst advice you ever received?
To not say menstruate in my pitch deck. Like, sir, what should I call it instead? Okay. And then I also was told by another mentor, he's like, I just really don't see why a woman would use this more than just 1 month. What? They have their cycles for 30 plus years. So, yep, they're going to use it more than just 1 month. So, yeah, there was just some advice that, of course, came from men that had no lived experience of a menstrual cycle that I was just like, okay, nope, throwing that in the trash. That's not any advice I'm taking.
And is there something you wish you would have known or a skill you wish you had when starting out in the tech industry?
Hindsight, I think I could have done a bit more research to understand more of, the back end or wireframes or this and that. I mean, ultimately, I was a designer at one point. I am a visually creative person, as I mentioned before. And so when I was visualizing my app, I had an image in my mind that I was having a hard time figuring out how to put into words for the developer to like then know what I wanted to look like. So I went on Canva, hallelujah to Canva, and I created it. I didn't know that I was creating a wireframe. I didn't know that's what it was called. So there are little things that I could have known earlier on. I found out what I had created was called a wireframe when the developer told me that's what it was. Prior to that, I was just like, this is what I want my app to look like. And he was like, that is the most helpful document I've ever received. Because I went in depth because I just needed to brain dump. I knew what I needed it to be. So I did design the app. He just went in and put the code in. So yeah, I think I could have done a little bit more educational research early on.
You still seem to know where you're going and what tech is, though.
I do. I do.
And if you had the ability to go back in time to when you were just at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Just keep going, one foot in front of the other. Don't let anything stop you. There's going to be days of doubt. There's going to be days of just pure elation and just revel in both of them because they're both here for you.
And what advice would you give to young girls, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders who's trying to break into STEM fields today, especially wanting to become next generation leaders?
Stay out of your head, get out of your own way. One of the biggest things I realized when I ever felt like I was at a roadblock, I realized I'd take a good hard look and I'd see myself standing in the way. And so it was that I was preventing myself, whether it was procrastination, I am still the one procrastinating. I'm in my way if I'm procrastinating. And procrastination is leading to not getting the email out on time and then missing the date, or it's this or that or the other. And so I found that at all times when something was going slow, I could really trace it back to myself and that I was in my own way and in my head about it, whether it was undeserving or unworthy or just imposter syndrome. It was always me. So get out of your own way, do it anyways, do it scared. You're going to be successful.
Last but not least, what is next for you in your role in your career? I know you've been mentioning that you're launching in 2 weeks. So what are
Yeah.
your career aspirations, Peighton?
Oh, I've got a lot of them. I have so many. Literally, what you can't see behind you is this entire like mad scientist board with all of my dreams and visions for taking Luna leave. So I have a lot of big goals. I am very hopeful for a massively successful launch. And past that, I want to just continue to develop and create Luna Leaf. I want to develop a team that has the same passion to help women feel better. I would love to be able to create an entire aspect that supports women in perimenopause and menopause. So I have really big visions of my career and my company going really far and getting offers to be acquired. And maybe I'm not ready to be acquired, but it will come. And I believe that it is going to be successful.
So am I. And congratulations for the 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Be amazing. And I can't wait to follow your journey and hopefully have another discussion in a couple of years.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Peighton, for being a guest on the Queens of Tech podcast, sharing your journey without doubt, inspire change, and reshape company culture for the next generation of women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders in tech. You are a role model showing how far you can come with your energy and the willingness and wanting to create change. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you have worked in the tech industry minimum 3 years and would like to share your journey, please nominate yourself or somebody you know to i@jasminemoradi.com. For more podcast episodes and to learn more about the Queens of Tech initiative and to support us, visit queensof.tech.